Started. So hello, welcome to everyone who's joined us for the final session of today, which is all about turning a potentially dry PowerPoint or presentation into an animated explainer video that's going to really engage your audience and give new purpose to maybe existing content that you already have. And although this is a 45-minute session, we're going to be showing you how to do this in 30 minutes. And then we're going to have a bit of time at the end for Q&A because we know there'll probably be a lot of questions about how to do certain things. So we've carved out a nice bit of time for that. As always, this session will be recorded, so you'll be able to go back through afterwards if you wanted to refresh your memory of anything, or if you have to drop off. And I'm sure I've seen a lot of you finding the question box already, but if you do think of any questions as we're going through, you don't have to wait till the end. You can put them in that question box on your screen and we will come to them at the end. So let's introduce ourselves. We're probably becoming more familiar now the more sessions you've joined this week, but I'm Naomi, the Content Marketing Manager at Sparkol, and I'm kind of hosting this event, and I am joined by Jonny, who is our Head of Customer Success, who is really the expert when it comes to training on VideoScribe and really getting maximum value out of our software. So I'm excited for him to share his insights. And for this session, we have actually pre-recorded the transformation, just because jumping between PowerPoint and VideoScribe and all different applications, we weren't completely confident in our Wi-Fi setup. So we thought for best viewing experience, we would pre-record this, but we'll be keeping an eye on the question box and we'll be ready to answer everything at the end. So I will, I don't know if you just want to say hi, Jonny, before we jump in.
Yeah, hi. So yeah, just so you know, Naomi gave me this challenge of, she also gave me the presentation saying, can you turn this presentation into animation in 30 minutes? So it would have been quite a challenge to do it live, just with the risk of things going wrong. So yeah, we have re-recorded it, but yeah, so I can relax while you watch that and then come back at the end for questions.
Yeah, we'll be keeping an eye on all the questions so that we're ready to come to them. So I will jump to the video now.
Okay, so we all have lots of existing information in various formats that we need to share, things like PDFs, PowerPoint slides, things like this. Wouldn't it be great if we could turn some of these into more exciting and engaging videos? So for this session, I'm going to take a typical presentation and show you how you can easily turn it into an animated video using VideoScribe. Now normally we'd recommend you start by writing a script and drawing a storyboard, but in this case we're going to shortcut all of this and we're going to be using this original document as the basis for our scribe. So we're basically going to be recreating this as a video, and we can keep a lot of the structure and these images. The main thing we're going to need to change are these bullet points, which we'll be converting into images, and of course the whole thing will animate. Okay, so the first step when converting existing content is to decide what sort of layout you want to use. You've probably heard us talking about these before, things like linear, collage and scenes. So you need to look at your content and decide which layout would suit it best. If your content could all form part of one overall picture or diagram that you'd like to show at the end of the video, then the collage method would work well. The camera would move around as you build up the collage and then zoom out at the end to show the whole picture. But in this case, we're starting with the presentation. And as you can see, it's already divided into 4 slides here, and each one covers a different area. So here it would make sense to use the scenes method. This works really well when your content is split up into separate sections, and each slide can become a new scene in the video. So the next step is to translate the content for each of these slides, which in this case is mainly text, into something more visual. So let's start with the title slide. So I'm going to start by copying the text here, and I'm going to go straight into VideoScribe and start to build this. So let's add a text element and paste the text in. Obviously we could change the font and color and things like this as well. So I'm going to position this similar to the slide, and I'm actually going to bring in here one of these guides and position it in the center here so that we can align everything easily as we go. So next I'm going to go and choose my subtitle text and copy this, and again I'm going to paste this in. So like I said, I'm going to be using the slides as a template, so I'm basically trying to recreate the slides in VideoScribe. So next we've got this background. So what I can do is use shapes in VideoScribe. So here we've got a rectangle. So I can enlarge this and place it over the screen. And what I want to do is turn this into a silhouette. And actually I now need to change the color to match my slide here. So what I can do is view the master, and I just want to grab the color here. So this is E91D63, so I can put that in here, E91D63. Okay, now I also want this to fade in rather than draw, and I want that to do that quite quickly, so I'll take these times down here. And obviously this should be at the beginning of my timeline. Okay, so the next thing I've got over here is this little triangle. So if I want to replicate this, I also need to create this. So I'm going to go and find a triangle in my shapes folder here, this one, and I can position this. Again, I'm using that guideline there. So again, this should be a silhouette, and we want the same color, which was E91D63, and we'll also have this one fading in as well. Okay, and obviously the text here now needs to be white against that background. Okay, so there's the first scene basically created. What I can do is set the camera, so this screenshot here, and now I'm going to preview and also turn off the zoom end. So the timings here might not be right, and we'll look at that later, but what I'm looking at for now is the visual side of things to get it to roughly match up, and I'm just doing this fairly quickly for this purposes. So let's just move that one down a little bit. Okay, so there's my first scene. So now I want to create the second slide, and all I'm going to do is move directly down to a blank space here, and I'm going to then create my second slide here. So let's come out of this and go to the second slide. Okay, so here we can start again with the text, the title. Like I said, we don't need most of this text, but things like titles and some other headings and other important bits of text can be useful in Scribes. So let's start by adding this here. And again, what I'm going to do is use that center line to keep everything similar. And I'll straight away set this camera for my second scene here. Okay, so look at this slide now. We're going to use the rest of this text here as the basis for our voiceover later on, so we don't need this to actually appear in the video. And as with most presentations, you'll see that this has been divided down into different bullet points. And as a general rule, you can usually take each bullet point and convert it or translate it into an image in your video. This isn't always the case, but it's a pretty good rule of thumb. Also, in this case, we've already got some existing images on each of these slides here. So let's start by bringing this first photo image into VideoScribe. So we can do this using the import image here, and I've got copies of all the photos here. So let's bring this one in. And in this case, for photos, it's a good idea to use move-in. Okay, so next we've got this emoji icon here. So for this, we can go into the VideoScribe emojis library, and we can find a suitable image. So we could use this one. So at the moment, I'm just placing the images anywhere on the canvas, and we can sort them out later. Okay, so I think we can use these images to cover this first bullet point here. So next we need to work through the rest of these. And what we can do is we can use keywords from each of these bullet points to search the library to find suitable images. So for this next bullet point here, for example, we could search for the word chat. Okay, so this has brought up quite a few images. So what we can do is we can refine this a little bit by adding another word. So for example, here we could use this one. And then for this next one, we could try searching for question mark. And then finally for this one, we could try searching for sad. Okay, so these are all the images we should need for this first scene. So what we can do is we can highlight them all and set the camera again. And then we need to position them in a nice arrangement. So in this case, I think it might look quite nice if we put this photo in the middle like this, nice and big. And then just have these other images appearing around the edge, something like this. Okay, so now we finish this scene, we can start the next scene, and we basically repeat the process. So let's start this new scene by adding the title. And to make it the same as the previous scene, what I usually do is I copy the previous title and then paste it in here. And we can actually use the down arrow to bring this down into the scene now. So next we can edit this and go back to our slide. So like before, we've got some photo images here. So next we can import these into our Scribe. And again, I'm going to be using Moving for these. And what I normally find is that as you go through this process, you come up with certain ideas. So for the previous scene, we added the title at the top, and then we used the photo in the middle, and added the other images around the edge. So it makes sense to use the same idea for the rest of these scenes. So let's arrange these photo images in the center as well. And then we can add the other images in around the edge in the same way. So next we need to add this emoji image. So just like in the previous scene, we can use these images to represent this first bullet point. So what I'm going to do next is go through each of these next bullet points to find images we could use. And for this last point, I'm going to use an image like this one. Okay, so let's set the camera for all of these. And I'm just going to do some final adjustments. Okay, so hopefully now you have the idea. I'm just going to quickly go ahead and create this final scene here quickly. Okay, so that covers the layout and the visuals. There are two more important steps to go. That's audio and then timings. So for audio, we have the backing track and the voiceover. So let's go in and add a backing track. And in this case, I think I'll go for a medium paced pop track. Okay, let's use this one. And I'm going to take the volume right down so that it doesn't drown out the voiceover. Okay, and next we need to create the voiceover. Now this needs to cover all these points from the presentation, so you may need to rewrite the bullet points a bit so they flow nicely. But in this case, I've already got some speaker notes here, so I'm going to be using these. And I'm going to be recording this directly into VideoScribe, as this is the quickest method. You can also record your voiceover outside VideoScribe using other software like Audacity, and then importing it. And this is actually what I'd normally do, as it means you can edit out any mistakes. But in this case, let's record it here. Now the timings are not going to be accurate yet, so you might want to turn off this preview so it doesn't put you off. It works best if you speak at a natural pace when recording, and then adjust the timings of the elements to match the voiceover. Okay, so I'm going to click record, and then I'm going to read through these speaker notes. Here we go. Hi, this is Jonny, and here's my new idea, which is to introduce buddies for remote new starters. So we have a problem. When new employees start remotely, it can be difficult for them to make connections and get to grips with the organisation. They're missing out on key information that would normally be shared in informal chats. Knowing who to talk to about what can be tricky. For the new employee, it can be intimidating and lonely while they're finding their feet. So here's my solution. Assign new employees 2 buddies outside of their team who will support them and help them to get to know the rest of the business faster. This could be by inviting new employees to join their meetings or setting up online coffee catch-ups. This helps create important connections across the whole business and reduce reliance on HR and managers to book meetings and arrange intros while getting to know the business faster. So what would this look like in the future? When a new employee starts, they have 3 immediate points of contact they can call on as well as their team. The buddies will also learn more about the employee's work and team. So more cross-business interactions take place, and new employees are more likely to be successful as they feel welcome, supported, and engaged. Okay, so we just need to wait until this finishes processing. And then the last step is to adjust the timings so the animations match up with the voiceover. To do this, we need to use Preview and check that the titles and the images start in sync with the associated line in the voiceover. But they won't need to match exactly. Hi, this is Jonny, and here's my new idea, which is to introduce buddies for remote new starters. Okay, so you can see that this first scene is going to need to finish by about 7 seconds. So we're going to need to reduce some of these timings. So let's start by reducing the animate times here. And also, don't forget that we only really need a transition time on the last element in each scene, so we can also take this down. But we will need this one here. So let's try this. Hi, this is Jonny, and here's my new idea, which is to introduce buddies for remote new starters. Okay, that looks okay. So we have a problem. When new employees start remotely, it can be difficult for them to make connections and get to grips with the organisation. Okay, so the first scene looked okay, but then I noticed that for the second scene, this text draws quite slowly, so we can reduce the time here. And also there were gaps at the end of this element and also this element. So let's speed that whole thing up and then let's watch it again from here. So we have a problem. When new employees start remotely, it can be difficult for them to make connections and get to grips with the organisation. They're missing out on key information that would normally be shared in informal chats. Knowing who to talk to about what can be tricky. For the new employee, it can be intimidating and lonely while they're finding their feet. Okay, so that scene looked pretty good, but at the end there we could see it moved on to this scene a bit too quickly. We don't actually want it to get to this bit of text until about 31 seconds here. My solution. So we're going to need to add about 2 seconds in here. So what we can do is we can add in some extra time on each of these elements here. Okay, so let's just check this scene again. So we have a problem. When new employees start remotely, it can be difficult for them to make connections and get to grips with the organisation. They're missing out on key information that would normally be shared in informal chats. Knowing who to talk to about what can be tricky. For the new employee, it can be intimidating and lonely while they're finding their feet. So here's my solution. Assign new employees 2 buddies. Okay, so that looks good. So I think you get the idea. Basically, you go through each scene, adjusting the timings until you're happy with them. So I'm just going to go through the rest of this and quickly do the rest of the timings. So here's my solution. Assign new employees 2 buddies outside of their team who will support them and help them to get to know the rest of the business faster. This could be by inviting So here's my solution. Assign new employees 2 buddies outside of their team who will support them and help them to get to know the rest of the business faster. This could be by inviting new employees to join their meetings or setting up online coffee catch-ups. This helps create important connections across the whole business and reduce reliance on HR and managers. Meetings or setting up online coffee catch-ups. This helps create important connections across the whole business and reduce reliance on HR and managers to book meetings and arrange intros while getting to know the whole business and reduce reliance on HR and managers to book meetings and arrange intros while getting to know the business faster. So what would this look like in the future? When a new employee starts, they have 3 immediate points of contact they can call on as well as their team. Look like in the future. When a new employee starts, they have 3 immediate points of contact they can call on as well as their team. The buddies will also learn more about the employee's work and team, so more cross-business interactions take place and new employees are more likely to be successful. Employees' work and team, so more cross-business interactions take place and new employees are more likely to be successful as they feel welcome, supported and engaged. Okay, so I think that's it. Let's have a look at the whole thing now. Hi, this is Jonny, and here's my new idea, which is to introduce buddies for remote new starters. So we have a problem. When new employees start remotely, it can be difficult for them to make connections and get to grips with the organisation. They're missing out on key information that would normally be shared in informal chats. Knowing who to talk to about what can be tricky. For the new employee, it can be intimidating and lonely while they're finding their feet. So here's my solution. Assign new employees 2 buddies outside of their team who will support them and help them to get to know the rest of the business faster. This could be by inviting new employees to join their meetings or setting up online coffee catch-ups. This helps create important connections across the whole business and reduce reliance on HR and managers to book meetings and arrange intros while getting to know the business faster. So what would this look like in the future? When a new employee starts, they have 3 immediate points of contact they can call on as well as their team. The buddies will also learn more about the employee's work and team, so more cross-business interactions take place and new employees are more likely to be successful as they feel welcome, supported and engaged. Okay, so there you go. Those are a few simple steps you can go through to quickly convert an existing piece of content into an engaging animated video.
So there we are. That was the main body of the content. I hope that was really helpful to see Jonny work through that process. We were keeping an eye on the questions as we were going. I had a number of comments just saying how impressed people were that Jonny did the voiceover in 1 take with no mistakes. So that's just the practice for you, isn't it, Jonny?
So yeah, well, some people may have noticed I did cheat a little bit. So I'm not actually very good at recording in one go.
Oh, don't ruin the...
I did in the end, but it wasn't the first time. I did cut the video there, so yeah, I did cheat a little bit.
We're all human. But yeah, so some of the questions coming through that I was just filtering through. So we'll start with the question from Sarah, who said, is there a way for the hand to stay on screen and simply finish one drawing and move to the next without kind of disappearing off and coming back again, without having to create one giant image?
Yeah, okay, good question. Yes. So remember, you've got the animation time, which is how long it's going to take to draw it. Then you've got the pause and the transition time. And if there isn't a transition between those two elements, then the transition time is going to be an extra pause, effectively. What you do is you just take both of those down to 0. So if it finishes drawing the first one and there's no pause or animation, pause or transition time, it'll then carry straight on and draw the second image. So good point, actually. I think there was that bit where I had 2 images in the top right, which was the online meeting and the coffee. Actually, the hand disappears in between those two, but seeing as they were linked together, it might have been nice if I'd done that, so I could have extended the animation time a bit and taken away the pause and transition time. Yeah, but yeah, that's one way you can do that.
Cool. So a question from Bess on the topic of recording your voiceover. What should you do if you make a mistake when you're recording it in Video Scribe? Do you have to do it all over again? So what's your kind of advice on?
Yeah, I kind of mentioned this already. Yes, you do. And I do find that pretty difficult because, if ever, like here, I'm saying ums and ahs and things like that, and it's very natural. And if it's a live talk, that's fine. But when you're doing a voiceover, it's usually good to get rid of those. It's not essential, so if you really want to get it out quick, then even if you do make some little mistakes, you can just leave them in, get it out. Depends who your audience is. If you want to get rid of those mistakes, then you've got 2 options. One is to just keep retrying your Video Scribe, which is what I had to do there. Took more than a couple of times. The other way is to do it outside of Video Scribe, so record it using some other software. We use Audacity quite a lot, like I mentioned, and then it's very easy to edit out mistakes. So basically, as you're recording, if you make a mistake, you just pause and then you restart the previous sentence or the previous section and try and keep it very consistent in terms of your intonation. And then when you cut that out, it's very difficult for anyone to tell if you've done it well. So yeah, we'd recommend to do that. Record it all in something like Audacity or equivalent. Edit out any bits you don't like. You can even do things like noise reduction and things like that if you need to, and then save it as an MP3, and then you can import it.
Cool. A question from Ian is, how do we embed music that's not in the Video Scribe library? So if you've got external files.
So similar sort of thing, MP3. So in both the music option and in the voiceover option, you've got an option to import audio files. So just like you saw the button when I imported the photos on the image screen, there's a similar button on both the music and the voiceover screens in the bottom left, and you can import MP3. So we use those 2 tracks, one for the music, one for the voiceover. You could actually, if you're importing your own, you could import 2 different tracks and have whatever you want on those 2 tracks.
Cool. We've had another question about tips on automating or speeding up the process of transforming slides into Sparkol, as it may be quite labor intensive for large slide decks. So do you have any sort of hacks that we could use just to speed things up?
I can't think of any. I tried to show all the shortcuts that I could think of. So things like copying the text, just copy and paste the text across, importing the images, so any images you've got there, just importing them directly in. And then I was, as you saw, where possible, actually just copying a bit of the text from each of the bullet points to search for that in the library. So I can't think of any other shortcuts. There's no automated process where you can sort of import a PPT and it does everything for you, unfortunately.
I know we have supported customers with that in the past, though. I think with transferring big files over onto VideoScribe to help animate them, if it is something you are looking for some external help with, we can always like take some of the strain of that if that's something of interest.
One thing I did think about while watching it back, I had preset my default animation time. So in your settings, you've got the default animation time. It's set, I think, to 8 seconds by default, which is quite long. So watching something doesn't sound like a long time, but watching something animate for 8 seconds is actually quite a long time. So you may have noticed I've changed it to 2.5 seconds, and I think 2.5 seconds is often, it's about the length of a sentence, yeah, so it works quite well, and therefore that's why I didn't have to change too many animation times, because they were roughly right. So just so you know, that's how I tend to do it. Nice.
Yeah, I found personally as well that makes a massive difference in the editing time of those end bits when you're just wanting to get it published. We've had a couple of questions about the recording of this webinar. You will be able to get it afterwards. We'll be sending it out tomorrow morning on email, so you'll have that, and then it will be available from our website. We'll let you know where you can find it.
I have one other thing to say, sorry. I also noticed that things happen quite quickly. Because I was trying to do it in real time rather than sort of pausing on things and explaining, I was moving fairly quickly. I did repeat things. So hopefully you guys got a chance to sort of keep up with everything. But if you've got any questions that come to you after this, yeah, then Naomi's going to give you an email link there. So do email us after the event with any questions that sort of come to your mind.
Perfect. I'm just checking through the rest. So we've had another question from Laurie, who's asked, how would you recommend ending the scribe? I noticed you didn't use the zoom out at the end since it's not a collage. So yeah, any kind of other options for ways to end your video?
So yeah, the zooming out at the end works very well if you want to show everything, if you've got everything laid out, even if it is scenes, if you've got kind of scene 1, 2, 3, 4, and they make a nice kind of frame for the end, that can be really good. Otherwise, yeah, you're on your last scene or your last camera view. So yeah, basically you just want to sort of position anything on there that you want. So if you've got any sort of call to actions, or if you want to add your logo or your email addresses or website addresses or things like that, then you can sort of arrange them all on that last screen. And you can then, if you do have a voiceover, you can leave a sort of pause at the end so that people have time to sort of see that before it actually finishes.
Nice. So another question from John is, basically if you've got a talking heads video and he would like VideoScribe to write text on top of the live video, in effect creating mini scribes which sort of are placed onto the main body of the talk. Could you kind of talk us through some options for how you could achieve that effect?
Sure. So you can't actually bring video into VideoScribe. You can't have a video playing on the canvas except for short GIFs. So if you've got a GIF, you can do that. But you're obviously talking about a talking head video. So that's something you'd have to do outside of VideoScribe. So what you would do, what I tend to do is take a still, a screenshot of your talking head, so you know where the person is, and import that into VideoScribe. So that's kind of like a temporary background while you build the scribe. You can then sort of add all your annotations and whatever it is you're going to do around the talking head, the still of the talking head, and then save that. You can also export just the sound. So you've got your video with the talking head. What I do is in my video software where I can see that I delete the video part and just have the audio. Sometimes you need to split those two into different tracks, so you can delete the video, save it as a different name because you don't want to lose your video. So save it as sort of audio only, and save it as an MP3. and then you can bring that into the video scribe as well. So you've got that for the timings as well. So you've got a still as the background, and you've got the narration going ahead, and then you can build your scribe. What you then need to do is, this is a little bit complicated, but you need to export it in Video Scribe in a format that you can then bring into your other video editing software and add it as another track. And often a good way of doing this is to use, we've got an option that you'll see in the sort of export video list, which is PNG sequence. And the advantage of that is it has a transparent background. So you export from Video Scribe as PNG sequence, import that into some other video editing software with your talking head, and then you can overlay one over the other. So that's a quick answer. If you want more detail, you can always contact us and ask any other questions.
We do have a full blog with a tutorial video on how to do that as well, so we can share that afterwards, because I know quite a lot of people are interested in achieving that look, because it does look really cool. So yeah, it is a lot easier than it maybe sounds when we're breaking down step by step, but we promise it is very doable. And there's free software that can support you with that. We've had a question from Gabriel asking if there's a way to export to MP4 with Video Scribe.
Yes, there is. Unfortunately, it doesn't appear on the list when you're inside a Video Scribe, but it's it's the main option when you export to ShowCo. So ShowCo, show.co is our kind of online video platform. So it's where you can store all your videos, copies of your videos, and it also does all of the rendering on our servers. So when you first go into this publish your video screen, instead of going to the first option, which is to create a video, and it does that locally, so it's using your machine, and it sometimes takes a little while to create a video. But I think it's the next option along, is the ShowCo logo. So click on that. It will then upload your scribe to our cloud service, which will then do the rendering for you in the background and send you an email when it's ready. And then you can go there, view your videos. It has an embed link as well, but you can also download it as an MP4 from that website.
Perfect. But yeah, that's an option that not that many people know about. And we've just had a quick question from Bill asking if there's an additional cost for ShowCo. There is not. It is included in your license. So yeah, it's a really good alternative way to render your videos online rather than on your device. So definitely experiment with that if you haven't already. But I'm conscious of time, and I can see we've had a load more questions in, so we will pick those up offline and make sure they get answered. And if you think of any additional questions that you haven't raised in this couple of minutes, you can contact us if you email marketing@sparkol.com. That's our email address that's being manned for this event. So we will pick up any of those and make sure they get answered. We'll also include in the follow-up email the bits that we mentioned, so about layering animations over live action video and anything else that we think could be useful with the recording that we'll be sending out tomorrow morning. But once again, thank you for joining us, and some of the great comments and interactions that we've had in this session. It's been a really good one, and one that we've been personally looking forward to a lot. So it's awesome to have everyone on. And thank you to Jonny for obviously creating the tutorial and talking us through it. So we look forward to seeing you on another webinar soon. Have a great rest of the day wherever you are. Thanks. Bye.